Hello, Mr. Harry, and I'm Xiaojie, and this is my group member Hong Chang. And Eddie, you can introduce yourself. Maybe this is Eddie Paramono or Pramono, and you can call me Jay. So we are like I'm a student from EIT Master Program, and we majored in urban mobility. And thank you so much for taking your time and take the interview by me and my group member. And so, just today we want to talk to you about your business, like your way home. And
hmm
we have around like 15 minutes to talk about like 4 or 5 topics about your business and something like why you start your venture and in during the development of your business in the different stages, what changes it has happened and and so on. So, but before that, we have to make a statement like we discussed before. We have to videotaping and recording this interview so we can upload it in the open web. And so we need you to be aware of this.
Yep, of course.
Okay. Um, so just to start up, so I'm just gonna start with the first question. So, what's the reason for you to start the business in the first place? Like you and your group.
Yeah, so I've always had like when my mind today it's like a cloud because
Mm-hmm,
of the jet lag.
mm-hmm,
So I apologize in advance if like my responses kind of don't make a lot of sense because
mm-hmm,
everything's kind of all over the place. But I've always had like a very entrepreneurial mindset, I would say. Um, since I was a teenager, I had like a strong focus in like I don't know, making like things better for people and like making money out of it. So actually my very first now I see it as my very first venture was a bakery that I put together when I was studying my bachelor's.
mm-hmm,
And back then I realized that there was a lot of like beautiful cakes on Instagram, but everyone said, "Oh yeah, it was beautiful, but it tasted really, really bad."
mm-hmm,
So I wanted to fix that. I wanted to actually make cakes that were delicious, but also not only looked good, but also tasted delicious.
mm-hmm,
So I started like finding recipes online and like building all of this like thing. And I was back then I was alone in this at first, so I was doing everything. I was doing the baking, I was doing what now I would see as procurement, which is like buying, finding all the um ingredients and like all of the supply, selling, marketing, like customer relationships. I was doing everything, and I was doing it because I wanted to like cope or to have money to buy things that my parents wouldn't
mm-hmm,
pay for. And I think maybe that's what made me or kind of gave me this mindset of like, okay, you can, with like a regular life or a regular thing, you can get the things that you need.
mm-hmm,
But if you want to have a bit more, then you're gonna have to work your way to do it. Maybe I think now that's how I see it. Um, and then like life did its thing, and I ended up doing the same master's degree as you're doing, and
mm-hmm,
that's where I met my co-founder, Kat. And we were randomly assigned in a class about innovation entrepreneurship in our first year at UPC.
mm-hmm,
And back then, we were assigned with other two women. They are our friends still. They just don't have like an entrepreneurial mindset, and yeah, that's how we started like drilling this idea of your way home. We were given like a challenge back then Now I don't know because I talked with Kat a few weeks ago about it, and she reminds it in a different way than I do. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember that we were given the challenge of reducing single occupancy vehicles, like
Mm-hmm.
single car use, basically.
Okay.
Um, and back then we realized that, like I'm from Colombia, and Kat is from Poland. The other two girls were from China and Germany, and then we realized, like, oh yeah, like no matter where you come from, women always have this problem of feeling unsafe when walking on the street alone, right? Especially at night.
Yes.
So we started drilling this idea, and first we wanted to push a solution that we saw, but then we decided that wasn't working, and that we wanted to do actually something um, that really impacted the problem from the root, or from another perspective, or from like a user oriented perspective. And now that I know more about like entrepreneurship and building startups and everything, like that's the first thing that they tell you, like don't um, push a solution, find a problem to solve. Like, don't do brainstormings until you actually know the problem that you're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the Your Way Home concept came to be. And then we realized that, yeah, like women would appreciate a more, um, how would you call it? Like an extra layer of information in regards to public space safety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's how we came up with the map navigation idea, because yeah, we saw that that could create value in them.
Right. So, but so that's the reason you why you start the business. And but have you like when you start the business, have you met any encounter any difficulties like at the beginning
Yes,
stage?
yes, of course. I mean, we're still very early stage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for a long time, we have been so focused on solving the problem
Yeah.
that we totally neglected that someone has to pay for it. So being able to find revenue streams has been a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Understanding really what the business needs and learning to adapt are big challenges. I feel that like being an immigrant and like moving twice over my masters and having have to move like 4 or 5 times in my life,
Mm-hmm.
like to another city, and now living this like double-sided life, like having Europe, having the US,
Mm-hmm.
are like kind of teaching me to adapt. And that's like a very important mindset in startups. Like, okay, something didn't work, let's change it, and like once you run out of ideas on how to change it, then that's when you kind of give up, right? Or give up the idea at least. Um, so yeah, like difficulties, like I always tell Kat and everyone, like if it was easy, everyone would have their own company, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone, like I think it's kind of natural for the human being or the human experience to have this level of independence of like, um yeah, like I don't have to be telling my boss because my boss is my co-founder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is like I'm also my own boss. But at the end you always end up, and this is what I tell everyone, don't believe that because you're building your own company you won't have a boss, because you always have people to respond to. um like, if it's not your boss, it's your investors. If not, it's your customers. If not, your stakeholders. There's always someone that you'll have to respond to. But going back to your question, um, I think like also being in the entrepreneurship, like deciding to become an entrepreneur, kind of has to give you this part, or like this sense of it's not gonna be easy,
Mm-hmm.
and changing kind of the narrative from like, oh, this is a problem, or this is a mistake, or this is like difficulty, to this is an opportunity, this is a learning, like this is like a challenge, and kind of changing that narrative from um, kind of negative perspective kind of mindset to an opportunity kind of perspective, I would say.
So like considering much more than before you becoming an entrepreneur, much more.
Yeah, the thing is, I had a job, like a corporate job for 3 years, and at first I loved it. But then I got bored. And I think like if you have jobs that you get bored at, that
Mm-hmm.
might be the first like sign that maybe your thing would should be to become an entrepreneur. Because I've met people who are like happy at their jobs, and like they're not looking for a promotion, or not like constantly looking for
Mm-hmm.
self-development, and they are more of like, okay, I'll take self-development if it comes my way, but I won't actively hunt it. And I think if you're this way, it's great, because like also companies need people who are this way.
Mm-hmm.
uh but then that might mean that you don't have like, you don't have this like entrepreneur and mindset, because I think like having having like having this entrepreneur focus or mindset or view of life, it's like constantly looking for challenges, like having this craving of like, okay, what's next.
Always getting out of your comfort zone.
Yes, exactly. It's like
Yeah.
constantly getting out of my comfort zones, and I tell my co-founders this. It's always about like, okay, I learned a bit of this, and I
Mm-hmm.
know enough to either do it myself, or understand that I can't do it myself, and that we need to get someone new, like
Mm.
someone to do it, right? And then like jump into the next thing.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of like, this like constant cycle um of like learning, and that's when it becomes really funny to be an entrepreneur, because then you know a bit of everything, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of nothing. Like if you ask me what are you an expert on, there's not a thing I can tell you, because when I realize that I need to become like an expert in something, then that's when I get bored.
Okay, so basically it's like you don't have to be so expert about like one aspect, but maybe you can just know what this specialist, what he's doing, you can understand that, and that's enough, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think, and this was one of, because we've been like through many entrepreneurship programs and like learning a lot of stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember once I asked like, okay, how do you um manage someone who you have no idea what they do?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have no understanding of how they do it. And I remember like the coach, advisor, whoever this person was said was like something like, focus on the result, like what is the result you need them to do, and understanding that the skills and that they have and the things that they know
Mm-hmm.
will take them to do the result that you need, like. And I think that's something that I've also learned like a lot, is understanding what are the skills that are needed in the company and bringing them in the time when they're needed. So yeah, that's, I would say I agree with what you said, like knowing a little bit, but like, or having a notion of what their work looks like in order to give them a task, because that's also part of like team building and like being a manager, which is very challenging sometimes.
Understand. And I want to ask one more question, like about um, what are the most important value that you have learned during your entrepreneurship journey? So it's
Yeah.
basically like I want to know like what's the most important value of your own business, the core value, maybe.
Yeah, I think being very like people focused. Um, and I think this is something that I've had myself for a long time. But I also believe that in this you know, like capitalistic, hyper productive, hyper efficient
Mm-hmm.
kind of world we live in and business world we work in,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of times people like it's very easy to see people as machines that have to be productive to some extent, right? Or that have to produce a certain outcome with the least amount of resources, be it time, money, whatever, whatever. And I think at the end, like our company, and that's something I constantly talk about with my co-founder. We just had and talk about it last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that we're selling peace of mind, right? Like we are telling people trust us because we will give you more peace of mind,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very hard to translate that to the end user or to the end customer
Yeah.
if we don't have it like in-house in our company.
Mm-hmm.
So we have had this like policy on if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you really have had like if you feel like you need a day for yourself, take it. Just let us know. Like we call them like mental health days, and like you can take as many as you want, as long as you let us know in advance. It's not like, oh, one day you don't show up and then no one knows about you. Um, and then
Just
uh
disappeared.
yeah, then you just show up like, oh yeah, sorry, I was not feeling well. Like we need to know in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it like for me it's like, okay, one thing is to have it like set, and the other one is for people to have it done. So a few weeks ago, one of my team members, she texted me early on a Friday, like, look, I've been so overwhelmed. These weeks have been so intense. I'm taking today off as a mental health day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry about that. And I was like, don't be like, I'm very happy that you're aware that you need it and that you're able to raise your hand and be like, wait, this is being too much for me. I need some time off. And so it's like kind of these policies of like people first. Also, we are like a female oriented company. So we have also decided that if you have struggles with your like menstrual cycle and you have like you're feeling very unwell for whatever reason, like you
Mm-hmm.
can also take some days off. Like there's no pressure, like there's like nothing, like no questions asked, like no explanations needed. I'm more of like I ask because I want to understand their thought process, but not because I want them to explain themselves. Like I want to understand what took them to make that decision so I can keep on doing it. But I think like the people first values is what's making me feel that we're being successful in our company, and that's also what's making people enjoy what they're doing with us, and that at the end is what's going to be translated um, into how our users and how our customers feel about ourselves. Understanding the human experience and all of the nuances of it, and understanding that we're not machines that need to be um, like producing certain output at certain rate, and understanding that life is dynamic, and that some days we're hyper productive and some days we're just not, and that's also okay, and not
Yeah.
being hard on ourselves because of that.
Yeah, I think that this kind of policy of balancing work and your like relate, I know, work and relax. I think it shows a lot of empathy for your employees, and
Yeah,
I believe that the business like Your Way Home has also considered the customer like into account a lot. So um, like so far, how what time you learned about your customer, like based on your business, do you have any like data collection background can get back up like why you did this the app application?
I'm not sure I get your question, the last bit of it. Like,
Okay,
what
so
have our, yeah.
cause I learned a lot. I learned something like online. So like how's your way home is going to be work for the customer. So it's basically like you collect the customer's data and know where it's safe or not, and what's
Mhm.
gonna happen maybe in the area, and maybe use plan the route and just to pro protect the customers from unsafe areas, right?
Yes. How, I mean, what we are building, it's or like in the long run, our vision, it's a safety forecast service.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the weather forecast, right? Like you can check on your weather forecast app um that the weather is going to be sunny, but then maybe it rains and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't expect it, right?
Yeah.
But then if it rains, you take your umbrella or you take your raincoat.
Mm-hmm.
We want to do the same, but for safety. So we
Okay.
want to tell people, um, like, hey, yeah, this area, people usually report that it's safe. So, like, you can have more peace of mind, but anyway, take your precautions. Or this area is unsafe, and then take extra precautions or avoid it at all. Like, you avoid going out when it's raining, right? Like, sometimes you just do that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been very, very interesting how how different people see it, because a lot of times, um, like there's a certain type of man that always brings up the question of like, yeah, what if someone gets raped, you know? And kind of my for me, the question is as absurd as, what if someone goes out in the rain and gets struck by a lightning, you know? Like, how can you blame the weather forecast for that? And I know it's kind of different and it's different dimensions, but
Mm-hmm.
this what tells me is that there's certain type of people who don't get our product, who don't get our service.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but to be honest, we have to pay them no mind, because at the end we care about the people who see value in it. Because if you like what we've seen, we've talked to over 50 people. Like we've had so many interviews with actual potential users of with people who actually have this problem, and most of the things they said is like, yeah, rarely something happens to me. Like at most, I get catcalled, I get a stare, but nothing like rape has never happened to me. But I always have this like feeling, like this uncomfort. And what we want to tackle is that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
like that uncomfortable feeling that it's not big enough to call the police or to like do something about it, but maybe you rant about it with your friends or you rant about it on social media. We want to be that service that allows you to rant and actually reach a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
because we will have a big user base, and then you can do something with that feeling and like kind of tell it to the world, feeling that that's going to have impact, and like taking it to the next level. Like I'm not just ranting to my friends about it. I did something about it and it helped me process that feeling. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
So
No,
it's
actually.
basically like bring like improve the confidence of people um when they feel unsafe.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Okay, kind of get this. Cause I've watched a video like you kind of like a panel discussion on your like website,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I remember like very deeply about a slide like um uh at some places like women will feel like unsafe, and I remember there mentioned like public transportation and something about like while they are on waiting stage,
Mm-hmm.
and those stages they feel like quite unsafe, right?
Yeah.
So, is there like so when we when they are like feeling unsafe at those places, um, will your like the your way home will it improve their confidence, like maybe lower their feeling of unsafety?
Yes. So how I mean what we found, and like many, it's not only us but many research that covers these kind of topics has found is that women feel most unsafe while they're waiting for the public transport, be it
Mm-hmm.
buses or metro or whatever uh, mode it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then that feeling decreases when they're moving, and then it decreases again slightly when they're walking from their station to their home, right? Like
Okay.
the last mile.
Right.
So what we want to give them is tell them like, okay, you know, like this area that you usually are perceiving as unsafe has these kind of remarks around
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
so you can know what to expect. Like, okay, if the and then it can help you plan your trips, because then if you know that the lightning is not going to be good, or that there have been reports of people who are drunk, because this is the main concern for women, like drunk people around.
True.
um then you can plan your trip so you arrive there when you need to be and you don't have to wait so much, or when you're there and you're feeling unsafe, then you can spot and be very mindful of what are the things that make you feel unsafe and report it in our service and do something with that like uncomfortable feeling. um, but that's an use case that we still need to validate because the navigation service has not been launched, and we don't have a big enough user base yet to kind of reach this particular user cases. Um, but yeah, we just want to give like users an extra layer of information so they can make more informed decisions on how they move around.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
Can I ask question? Yeah,
yeah.
continue. Hi, Andre. Yeah, to continue that, your services is providing the output is really difficult to measure, right? It's increasing the comfortable or the confidence level of the user itself. So I was just curious, how did you determine that your idea was going to work in the first place? Did you have a backup plan at the time, or maybe you can tell more?
So we actually we're actually benchmarking an idea that already existed and failed in Italy. Um, in Italy, there was this mapping service. So what you saw at Collide and the service that we have up and running, they had it in Italy, and they had like about 50,000 users all over Italy, and they got funded. They had like an interesting business, and they put a lot of money in marketing, um, but they failed to create like instant value for the users.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're changing about that business that failed, because they ended up collecting a lot of data. And I think, like, especially in places in southern Spain, this is more of a problem. And people are much more eager and much more aware of what things make them feel unsafe. um, but we wanted to, or like what we realize now, also after this like first soft launch in Stockholm over the summer, was that people, in order to encourage them to report, we need to first create value for them, right? And the value we create is through the navigation service.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we are actually shifting it, and creating some value initially, even with no reports or few reports, with some data about the built environment. So data about street width, about street infrastructure, about street lighting, that we can just grab from the open data portal or from other sources and put it in our service. and with that create a first like layer of like, oh, do you like this? If you like it, help us report both safe and unsafe places, because we needed to, create like this momentum and this critical mass that will make the service sustain itself in the long run. Because at the end, being crowdsourced is very risky when it comes to how we collect the data, how much money do we have to put in marketing, and how intensive the marketing efforts have to be. So we have decided that we need to shift it. But we have seen that this has been like already validated somewhere else. At least like people find some value in this. Um, but we just need to give it, because from what I saw from this other startup idea that existed, is that they really didn't have a business drive. They really had like this problem solution drive, but at the end, if you want to build a company and build a company that can grow and can scale, and and it's a good business, you have to have a business drive and understand how to make money and how to make it cheaply, and how to you know like do it that way, I would say. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. It's it's different because you solve the problem actually, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and what do you think about how does your startup today compare to your original idea?
It's a totally different thing. I feel like I'm gonna charge my phone because my battery is dying. I feel like things change, or at least things have been very pivotal from how I see the startup today as I saw it 1 year ago, for one very simple reason, and is that people now are getting what we're doing without much explanation. Like, and I feel like you who were there at Collide were like very aware of it. Like you saw our booth and you got it right away, right? Like you were like, oh yeah, I know what this company is about. Like I didn't have to give an explanation of why we are a good business and why, like I feel like that has been the most pivotal thing, because 1 year ago we still had to give a lot of explanations of why what we were doing made sense. And and I think that's what, at least it's giving me the most like feeling of there's something here that I'm not having to explain a lot of what it is about, I think so.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Back to you, G.
Yeah, just I have one more question. Like, so what's the current stage like of your business? It is it still in the process of collecting data? And
Yes.
okay.
um we're still prototyping.
Mm-hmm.
um we've I mean, we followed the design thinking methodology, like on the smallest scale to the biggest scale, and we're at the stage where we are prototyping our features. So what you saw is the pinning service that people are getting it. It has some product things to be improved, and the team is working on that. And the team is also working on the development of the navigation service. And then after that, we're gonna develop new features, because at the end, the pinning and the navigation services are developed for everyone, and they're like not paid. But we need to develop features that people will pay for.
Yeah.
So the current stage of what we're doing is now creating features that create value for customers who pay. And now we are in the discovery of parents, because we have seen that a lot of people have said, oh yeah, parents would find so much value in this if they could like track their children's, and like develop like this connection between parents and children, where the parents can make sure that they're going the safest way, the children would also find value in it. But then like also support their dynamics whenever the children are outside.
Mm-hmm.
So how they notify when they're home, when they're leaving, when they're coming, and create a paying user base there that actually the gives us enough traction to get some pre-seed funding, because at the end we've been bootstrapping all along. And bootstrapping is fun because it's a lot of like learning, but there's a point when you actually need to get the money rolling,
Yeah.
especially the payroll going, if you want to keep good talent, because we have great people, but we have also missed out on amazing people just because we can't pay them. So at the moment, we are still in the stage of prototyping, and especially prototyping with a focus on paying customers, I would
Mm.
say.
So you still need like more information.
Yes, but that's the thing about startups. You never have enough information. Um, you rely a lot on gut feeling, and this is like a quote that I love from one of our mentors, because KTH Innovation also has this mentorship program,
Mm-hmm.
and we were assigned a mentor. Her name is Sophie Lindblom. She worked in Electrolux. She was like head of global innovation for Spotify. She has been a two times founder, and she's great. We love her.
Okay.
And she said that when you're building a startup, you have like a bunch of sand in your hand, and that sand is your knowledge. So, or your knowledge or your data, like the things that you collect, and that at the beginning you have to make decisions with based on this little amount of sand, and especially on your gut feeling. And the bigger the company grows, the more sand you get, because
Mm-hmm.
then the more you understand your user, the more you understand the market you're operating in, and the less you have to rely on your gut feeling. But you will always need more, like, to rely on your gut feeling and more sand, like it's never enough.
Yeah.
And she said, I remember that she said something along the lines, or maybe that was my reflection. Now I'm projecting in on what she said, is that what these what companies or governments or whoever hires these big consultancies like PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, like, all of these huge firms of consultancy, is that they have huge amounts of sand,
Yeah.
because they know a lot about everything, and that's what they pay for. So yeah, to answer your question, like, we are in the stage of learning more about our users, but we will always be like,
Right. Yeah.
I think, like, a company will never know everything about their users, because things change, and that's kind of the dynamics that companies who fail don't understand, right? Like Blockbuster didn't understand that what was coming was digital, or or um I don't know, like, generational changes. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, Victoria's Secret didn't understand that, or Abercrombie and Fitch, they didn't understand that, like, this hegemonic visions of the female and the male body were going to change, and that's what they're failing.
Yeah.
Because they're failing to understand that the world is constantly changing, and it's only gonna always gonna keep on changing. So I feel like, um regardless of the stage of your company, how global it is, if it's listed in NASDAQ or it's a private, if it has thousands or tens of thousands or millions of employees, like, you will always need to be learning about the market, about your user, about where you're operating. Like, there's never like a, okay, we know everything we need to know kind of mindset. And maybe that's why I like it, because I feel like, in some, like, once you focus on your, when you have your like 9 to 5 corporate office job, like, your work is to oversee certain thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you rarely learn beyond that. But when you're at a head of a company, or like at a top level of a company, you really need to start like seeing the world in a very holistic way, and understanding how that actually affects your business and what you're building and your work.
Right. That's quite refreshing because we have never been entrepreneur before. But from your where you stand, I think I've learned a lot. I think we've learned a lot. like about um, being an entrepreneur for like startup. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
really fun. I enjoy it every day.
how to say it, like Pam maybe struggle but learned a lot and enjoy it.
Yeah. I think now that I was thinking about going back to your question about the difficulties,
Hmm.
I think the biggest difficulty of it is learning to identify burnout, because that can really fuck you up, fuck your team up, fuck your company up. Um, and it's really easy when you're a founder to fall into it, because imagine the most um, satisfying thing that you have ever done in your life. Like, what's the thing that has given you the most joy ever? And then you get paid to do it, and you have to do it from 9 to 5, but you can do it more, right? So it's very addictive, like to build your own company. I feel like, or I talk with Kat about this all the time. For me, it's very addictive to work on your way home, to the point where it becomes a non-healthy relationship, because then a lot of my emotions are linked to the company.
Yeah,
So if the company is doing great, I'm feeling great. But sometimes, there's like drawbacks and like step downs, and like, there are some days where the company is a mess, and that ends up like connecting to my emotions. And for me, it's really hard sometimes to like disconnect myself from the company, and to be able to identify, okay, I'm burning out a bit, I need a break. And knowing that, like, learning to identify, okay, maybe you need to step down for a bit. And I think that's where having great co-founders really helps, because I tell everyone, my closest relationship in my life is not even with my boyfriend, it's with my co-founder.
right.
Like, I talk with her way more than I do with my boyfriend. And it's even more challenging because she's always reminding me of, like, remember that we're friends and that we still have a friendship to nurture
Hmm.
besides our co-founding relationship. So for me, it's like, okay, I have to like be a good co-founder, but I also have to be a good friend outside of
Yes,
office hours. So I think like we've managed to get to know each other so much that we're able to identify, okay, I think you need a break. I think you need, like, to take a few days off to come back refreshed, or even to tell each other, you need holidays. You need to go away for 2 weeks and not work at all. Um, so yeah, I think that's the biggest difficulty, or at least it has been for me so far. And I think this is something that whichever co-founder you see online, and there are a lot who are very vocal, because we're very egotistical people and we love talking about ourselves. Um, like, they will tell you about burnout and how it can really, really fuck you up.
doesn't sound like so. It actually, yeah, a little bit from what I imagined, but that's true because for the people who get a job from the company, they usually just do their working hours, and after working hours, so they are free from their work. But kind of like be an entrepreneur for startup, you have to like so bound to your
Yeah.
startup, so with your business. So you have to think about all aspects, all the people it relates to. So it's kind of like it's quite easy to neglect your own feelings, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. There are two things that I want to respond that to, and one is that I told Kat we shouldn't be working 40 hours a week.
Hmm.
Like, we should strive for 30, and then if we do more than 30, that's fine. But not like be hard on ourselves for not doing 40 hours, because at the end, like, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I'm always thinking about your way home. Like, I'm always thinking, because like these ideas come outside these times, and consciously or unconsciously, it's very hard for me to detach from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell her and I tell the team all the time, I really hope you clock out and you clock out. Like, please go and do your lives and do not think about what's going on here. Please, because this is not healthy, like, and I try to do it myself also to step out of it. And I think and that connects to the second thing, is that I think that having this like split life between Stockholm and the US helps me a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end, whenever I'm in Stockholm, everything I do revolves around work.
Yeah.
So I wake up early to go to work. I cook my lunch so I can work well and I don't have to worry about food during work.
Mm-hmm.
I sleep well so I can work well. I work out so I can work well. And for me, it easily becomes this loop of everything I do, it's directly or indirectly related to your way home. So I've also learned that I need to step out of this Stockholm bubble, or that maybe I need to have more of my relaxed life in Stockholm. Um, but it's good for me to be here and to kind of be away from it, because then I can live my life outside of
Disconnect.
your way home. Yeah, exactly, like disconnect a bit. Um, because it's really hard to separate myself from that, I think, especially when I'm there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I think basically, I think we finished our questions actually. And thank you for today's interview with us.
Yeah, of
It's
course, I'm
really
I'm very
happy.
happy.
Yeah, it's really happy talking to you, like to know more about your like experience.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as I was telling you, like, we're very, maybe egotistical is not the word, but like egocentric, I would say. Like, in order to be a founder, there needs to be some level of ego
Hmm.
there, and I'm very aware of it. That I love talking about myself. So I think like next time you're gonna look for a founder, um, it's not gonna be that hard, I would say, to like approach them with like, oh yeah, I would like to understand a bit more about your experience and this and that for a class project or whatever.
Hmm.
But I'm very happy to be able to share my experience, because this they don't teach you anywhere. So I'm actually very, very glad that it's as part of your studies, like they're asking you to go find a founder and talk to them and ask them questions.
Right.
Because I never had it. Like, I was always, I've been learning like through people that I admire or mentors or coaches that I've gotten, but I never had like, okay, I want to ask you all the questions. So yeah, thanks for reaching out. I'm very, very happy, and I'm also very happy to connect you with other founders if you want to talk to more, if that's the case.
Yeah, if but I think we have to wrap up this one first,
Yep.
and if we have the chance, I'd like to talk to them as well. Okay, I'll do a proper wrap up. So, that's for today's interview, and thank you so much for taking your time, and hope you have a good day.